So now we come to stanza number 75 of 9th chapter of Bodhicharyavatara. Now we come to the next question or debate, where if there is no self, then why compassion is necessary? There should not be any compassion, or there's no necessary to be compassion. Now there are three questions. One is, if there is no self, then who is the object of compassion? All the sentient beings, they don't have self, so therefore why should we have compassion, or to whom should we have compassion? It's wrong to have compassion to anybody because there's nobody. That's one question. Second is that if there is no self, so what is it that will become enlightened? There's nobody who can get enlightened. So then to say that I want people to become enlightened, all the people to become enlightened, and is no use, because who is there to get enlightened? There can't be any enlightenment because there's no self. Third question is to have this idea that all these sentient beings are there, that they are suffering, and I need to, I need to get rid of all their sufferings, and I want to bring them to lasting peace and happiness. This is also a delusion. It's a wrong perception. So therefore, it has to be that those mental attitude is equally wrong as self, as to think that there is a self is also wrong. So both of these needs to be abandoned or gotten rid of. Why not? So there is no need to feel compassion, work for enlightenment, try to benefit people. All this is wrong if there is no self. So it is. So these three questions. So the first one is, kalte sentien yumana solanji jisha nas. Dribu tunde kilombi mumbi topa koyambaos. Now the English translation is, if beings, you will say, have no existence, who will be the object of compassion? This is clear. Those whom ignorance improves, for whose sake we have fledged ourselves. So it's true that ultimately, there's nothing called, self, or even sentient beings existing on their own. But because of ignorance, all these beings, multitude of countless beings, they think they have self. And because of that ignorance, they suffer a lot. although there is no actual, ultimately there is no need to suffer, but they suffer because they are, they think they have, they have self, and that's why they get all kind of, all negative emotions, all karmic consequences that they do through their own negative emotions. And so therefore they have all kind of experiences, illusory in nature, but but they think it's real, and therefore they roam around, wander around the 6 realms and continuously suffer and suffer and suffer. And so therefore these illusory beings, illusory sufferings with which they suffer a lot, must come to an end. So therefore we pledge ourselves to work for that. Although I also am, actually there is no self and no truly being self, but there is a relative self. So with this, I need to work for the benefit of beings, and only if we truly understand that the self is something illusory and not truly there, then only all these samsaric, sufferings come to end. Otherwise not. So therefore, there's very much need for compassion and working for the benefit of beings. It's a little bit like if there's a person, and that person has a kind of a delusionary disease that they see. They see ghosts, they see, all kind of problem, difficulties and all kind of, forms and sounds and things like that, and then they get lots of, fear and anxiety and suffering, and they cannot sleep, and they're always in fear, and they have lots and lots of problems and pain. Then you have to do something about that, and then if you give treatment, whatever kind of psychological or therapies or medicines or something, whatever, and then eventually they get better, and then they come to know that all those they saw were never there. It was just illusions, and they were just something that appeared to their mind only, and it was nothing truly there or truly, then they are cured, because those things that they saw were never there, or it was all delusion right from the beginning, and therefore you cannot say that there was no need to cure them, or there is no need to help them, or there was no need. So in the same way, we need to have compassion. We need to work for the benefit of all the beings, although in ultimate nature there is no self, truly existing self, but they feel or they think, and they think they strongly attached to a self, and so therefore they have so much pain and problems. Although these are all illusory, but still, it needs to be cleared, it needs to be understood, and so therefore there is very much need for compassion. Now the second one. If you ask, there are no beings, who will gain the fruit? It is true, it is through ignorance they are said to be. But for the total vanquishing of sorrow, the goal which ignorance conceives should not be spurned. So, what this means to say is Senche Mendi Sui Dente Wenchu Molindu. So, if there is no beings, if there is no self, then there is no beings. And if there are no beings, then who will get enlightened, So the result of enlightenment is not there. So why we want to, why I say that, I want all the beings to have perfect enlightenment. That's true. But ultimately that's true, but in a relatively, there are all these beings who feel they are deluded and who strongly, kind of strongly grab or having so much attachment to their self, and because of this illusory self, so that they suffer continuously. So this ignorance ignorance can be cleared, can be eradicated, and should be eradicated. And when you talk about enlightenment, it's not something that there is a truly existing being, and this being is not enlightened now, and then he or she will get enlightened at a certain time, and he can get something that he didn't have before, and he got rid of something that he had before. That's not the case. That's not really the way it is. It's just an illusion, a deceit, a kind of deceptive state of mind. Ignorance, what we call ignorance, that people feel, people think, because there is awareness, therefore they think there must be I. Because there is I, there must be others. Because there is I and others, then, some of the others are good for me, some of the others are not good for me. So therefore I should try to get what is good and not get what is not good. And so therefore aversion, attachment, and then all the efforts to get what I want, what is supposed to be good, and to get rid of what is supposed to be not nice and not good. And then in this effort, you are afraid, you have anxiety, you have pain, not getting what you want and getting what you don't want, and then worry about all those things, and so you never are totally satisfied, because you cannot really get anything, and all these things are truly not there. So therefore you keep on suffering, So that ignorance can be eradicated and should be eradicated. And enlightenment, what we call, is nothing else. It's nothing to get, nothing to get rid of in a true nature, but to get rid of this misunderstanding or misconception or wrong perception. So to free yourself, to free your mind or your consciousness from this, wrong perception of a self is actually enlightenment. And unless you have that, clear perception, what we call realization or enlightenment or awakening happens, you keep on suffering, although in an illusory way, but you keep on suffering. So therefore it is very necessary that you have to be free from that. That ignorance must be cleared, and that is what enlightenment is, and that should be cleared. So the third question, because to think that enlightened, I have to get rid of the sufferings of all the sentient beings, is a wrong perception or wrong. You can't really do it, or there is nothing to do it ultimately. So therefore, this concept, this idea, this motivation is also, ignorance, wrong. It's not how things really are. So therefore, this is equally you have to get rid of, if you say, like the self. Then, dungal nyewar chetun tin ribi mumba domasha. Dungal je ingajana doda mumbi pewaranja deli jondu mechena dome gaman choyonons. So this is kind of 2 stanzas, I think. The source of sorrow is the pride of saying I. It's fostered and increased by false belief in self. To this you may believe there is no redress, but meditation on oneself with the Supreme One. So this stanza, the source of all this suffering is this, whatever you call it. You can call it pride, you can call it ignorance, you can call it misunderstanding, that this is I am, I exist on its own. That's the one. And this is very strong in all the sentient beings, although this is not the reality or not the ultimate truth. And then, I am there, this is me, this is mine, this, I like this, I don't like this, this is my side, this is the other side, I want this, I don't want it. All this, it's fostered and increased by false belief in self. The self, feeling of self and, believing in a self, whether it is a natural kind of I am, or all this kind of philosophical ideas that there is something called Atma, there is something called self, it is like this, like that, all kind of, philosophical and religious or whatever beliefs. This will not help, but actually make it worse. It's fostered and increased by false belief self. To this you may believe that there is no redress. You think that maybe there is nothing you can do about it. But actually, you can do something about it. The meditation on self, on no self. So therefore, it is not correct to say, that to feel that there is a self, and that is ultimately not true, and to feel that I want to free and I work to free all sentient beings from suffering, which is also in a way ultimately not true or not ultimate reality. These are both a kind of ultimate, from the ultimate point of view, both kind of wrong, but practically there's great difference, because the latter, that I would like to work for the benefit of all the sentient beings, I want to bring them lasting peace. It is something that is possible, because if you meditate on no self, if you teach people, or if you lead people to really look into yourself and examine and try to understand, reflect and meditate and practice on it, then it is possible to be free from this misunderstanding or this wrong perception. So therefore, the path is very important. It is not everything that is said in that's taught in the path, all the methods, maybe not ultimately true, or ultimately they are not kind of there in a way, but it's very necessary and it's very beneficial. It's a great method, so therefore it's a supreme way. So therefore Dharma is necessary, compassion is necessary, to say that I want to bring all the sentient beings to perfect enlightenment is necessary, and in a way there's a truth also, because it's not that you can't bring somebody, there's no self to, but it's true in its nature. It's something that can be done and can happen. So this, after that, I think this is 77. So I stop here. Thank you so much.